What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the LTQ Wrestling Podcast. We got a special guest today. The Beast Hedgehog is rejoining us. Hedgehog, appreciate you joining us for this episode.
Yep, good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. And QJ, we got QJ and Money here as well. Tears unfortunately couldn't make it. He was celebrating Heritage Weekend, so hopefully that went well for him. So a lot of wrestling going on. We got some beefs, we got some opinions, we got it all. So let's get right into this. So Hedgehog, I'll start with you. This has been a topic I've seen a lot of online. Really, fans going back and forth. Obviously, you have AEW, who's more of an in-ring product. You got WWE, that's more of a storytelling first product, and you got fans who like both. So, which one do you prefer when it comes to wrestling? Are you a fan of both when it comes to storytelling or the in-ring aspect of professional wrestling?
I've honestly got to say I'm a fan of both because obviously I like what happens in the ring, because that's what we're tuning in to see. We're tuning in to see the wrestling and everything that's going on in the ring. But I think that the storytelling is what gives the two competitors the chemistry, or whether it's 3, 4, whoever, it gives it the chemistry. And when there's chemistry behind the actual performance in the ring, that makes it so much better, in my opinion. So I think like both is definitely important, and obviously you don't want one to like override the other. They just need to balance each other out. If that makes sense.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. QJ, how you feel about it? Which one are you more of a fan of when it comes to professional wrestling?
I like the professional wrestling, but it is true. You do got to have a story telling because it draws people in and they'll get more invested into it. Because, yeah, you could have a perfect match with anybody. I remember Triple H said that on Logan podcast. Like, I guess back then, they used to do, a lot of things in the ring. But like you said, the story, it has to be a story to it. It'll just bring it out more. But I just feel WWE, like, storytelling's been good, but they got to get back to kind of having the matches just really like live up a little bit more. So like for example with Cody and Reigns, I mean the final match when Reigns lost, I feel like a lot of people don't remember that match. They just remember it as everybody coming out, Cena, Undertaking, all them. Like they didn't really care about the match too much, and I don't think it should be like that because this I feel should have been one of the greatest matches of all time. You know what I mean? So that's how I feel.
Yeah, you both have had really excellent points so far. Money, which side are you taking this? Are you like Hedgehog and a fan of both?
Um, I have to agree with Hedgehog. I mean, I am a fan of both. However, I kind of like QJ's point. They should definitely leave it all in the ring and not leave it more in storytelling. And Hedgehog's point is also a good thing because we come to see the fight, not just talk. Now, WWE is more predictable, but I mean, they're kind of getting to where it's becoming unpredictable because I mean, everybody thought Stone Cold was going to be the one to interfere instead of the Undertaker, and I guess Stone Cold didn't want to be there, so they had to have the Undertaker do it. So, but yeah, I'm a fan of both for sure.
Yeah, I gotta agree with y'all. I'm a fan of both too. Like, I love a great wrestling match, but I've heard many wrestling promoters say this. If you have a good wrestling match with no story, it's a forgettable match. And like you gotta have a story, but like also with the story, you gotta have a good match to counteract that. If you have a great match with no story, it's gonna be less interesting. But if you have a good story with a horrible match, then it's just gonna be like the story was built up for nothing. So like I look at it like kind of like AJ Styles and Cena, for example. Like they both had a story already there. Story was great. Two guys who have been around the world for 20 years did their time, just different paths, ended up facing off, and the match lived up. So I compare it to that. So I'm definitely a fan of both. But I do see the criticism. Anybody watching who criticizes AEW, I get it because AEW doesn't do a lot of stories and it gets fans less interested in the matches. But like they did a story with Brian Danielson and Swerve Strickland, a lot of fans were more invested in that because it was a career versus title and there was a story. So I definitely could get both arguments, but I'm a fan of both. Both have their importance in the wrestling world. So speaking of AEW, chair shots, they've been doing a lot of them. I'm personally not a fan of chair shots. I think they can cause a lot of problems later in life. And I'm gonna read Ricky Morton quote that he said after that match. He said, "Chair shots to my temple have caused lots of damage to my memory and caused lots of concussions. I have to take specific medication from taking those shots. Please don't go through what I put my body through. We have evolved since then." So, Money, I'll start with you. Are you a fan of AEW allowing chair shots to the head?
There's pros and cons, just like everything else in the wrestling world. If you're willing to take risk and take a lot of chair shots, then maybe. But the head shots, I can't really agree with that, because especially if it's going to do permanent brain damage. I mean, shit, people could lose their memory, short term and long term. So I think they should play it safe and kind of stick. I mean, well, I'm obviously they have it now, but I don't think it's a good thing, especially for wrestlers as a whole. So.
Yeah, it's definitely dangerous. Hey, Joe, what you think about it? Chair shots in AEW.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what Money's saying. I think it's just pretty unnecessary, because people got to realize we're not in 2005 anymore. Like, you don't need to do a chair shot to the head to like make it entertaining. I mean, you could do a chair shot anywhere other than the head, and like the crowd will still go crazy over it. So yeah, I think it's very unnecessary. It's not really needed.
And QJ, how are we feeling about it overall?
Yeah, I don't think it's needed. Gotta play it safe. Just probably just hit the back more, and yeah, certain things just got to be careful doing. Like this ain't like Ezra said, this ain't 2005, so we got to ease up a little bit. But they still have the spots they could do. So
Yeah, I agree with all three of y'all. I don't really think it's necessary. I mean, that chair shot Hangman did the swerve was brutal. I mean, I know the chair was probably gimmicked to be a little more bent, but he still slammed that mofo on his head. And I mean, listen, it's all entertainment, and I get those fans who think, well, it's just a gimmick chair. I mean, you're still getting hit at full force on your head. I mean, it don't matter what it is, it's going to cause some type of damage. And a lot of wrestlers have had brain damage. They've had memory loss later in life. Like, at the end of the day, they're trying to entertain us, but just think about your health in the next 20 years, especially somebody like Darby Allin and Jeff. I mean, you can even look at Jeff Hardy. I mean, he's put his body through a ton of hell, and he's a lot slower now and not really as good as he used to be because of all the torture he put his body through trying to entertain the audience. So they really got to think about that. But yeah, I agree. I think chair shots are unnecessary. So we're going to get to the big beef. Logan Paul and Kevin Nash. I'm going to read their quotes. There's a lot of F-bombs involved in both, so I'm not going to say those, but I'll try to read it as accurately as I can. So here's Kevin Nash. And to explain why they're beefing, basically on Hulk Hogan was on Logan Paul's podcast. We talked about this a little bit in the last episode about his Chris Benoit comments. So basically, Hulk Hogan was talking about a shoot in wrestling, and Logan Paul pretty much said, "What's a shoot?" And Hulk Hogan was like, "You're in our business, and you don't know what a shoot is." And that really went around the wrestling world. And here's what Kevin Nash had to say about it. He said, "He's not one of the boys. Where would he learn that shit yet? Where is he going up and down the road talking our jargon? In the building, everybody's in their own effing motor coach. There's no effing interaction. There's no socialization. You don't become one of the boys just because you're effing around them. That mother effer, from what I've heard, he's making like $5 million for effing limited effing dates, and those other MFers are out there making house shows. F you, F you." So that's what Kevin Nash said to Logan Paul, and here's Logan Paul's response. "I got people messaging me. They're like, 'Yo, Kevin Nash is talking shit about you.' Damn, who is Kevin Nash?" And I mean that. I'm unfamiliar with this guy, which I think is his problem. I'm not as versed in the WWE as maybe I should be, as my peers are, but then how am I so much better than all of them? I don't know how I could be the best in the WWE, or at least one of the best. I'm surely a top fiver, and I don't even do it full time. Now imagine if I did learn a little bit. Imagine if I did become one of the boys and learn what the difference between a shoot and a work was. Will that make me a champion? F me, F you. You're one of those old guys who is better than I am better at your job than you ever were, and that makes you pathetic. This will be my sport. I will continue to make guys like you eat your words when I devote a little bit of time to it. So F me, F you." So a lot there, obviously, from Logan Paul and Kevin Nash. So, Hedgehog, what are your thoughts on what they said to each other, and whose side are you really leaning towards in this beef?
I honestly think that Kevin Nash might have overreacted a little bit. Like, I'm not really on Logan Paul's side, but I think really all it is to say with it is that Logan Paul just has a lot to learn with the business, and maybe he's not as passionate about it as he should be, because I mean, yeah, there is some stuff that he should know and he's making it clear he doesn't know, and that's on him. And I feel like it's up to people like Kevin Nash and, like, the older wrestlers to kind of help him understand that and kind of guide him to it. But I guess at the same time, you can't guide someone that wants to take an arrogant approach at it, because I mean, he literally said, like, oh, if I did take the time to learn it, then, like, I'd be the best at it. Like, that's just that arrogant attitude I'm talking about. And it's just like, I don't know. I feel like I'm leaning more towards Kevin Nash, but yeah, Logan Paul's got to fix his attitude. Like, if he wants people to help him, that's how I see it.
Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying. QJ, what do you think about this whole Logan Paul and Kevin Nash beef?
Yeah, I get what Kevin Nash coming from. Logan, he could have he got to get more invested into the business, but like you said, like as I said, the attitude, like just that smart, remark. Like that's the only thing I don't like about Logan. He always has that smart remark. But yeah, I can get where Kevin Nash is coming from. Just Logan just gotta listen. Just listen, understand. I mean, been in the business for a little while now, so try to understand and just learn. That's all.
Yeah, he definitely has a very arrogant attitude. Money, what do you think about this whole beef between these two?
Okay, so based on that alone, it sounds like Logan Paul likes to inflate his ego, like these two are saying. So first things and foremost, if you've watched wrestling for so long, like in like the '90s and shit, and you don't know who Kevin Nash is, he does have a lot to learn. Kevin Nash is one of the all-time greats, especially in the Attitude Era with the NWO and all that, WCW, Monday Night Wars, and Logan Paul definitely is still new to the business, and I don't even think he'd really be the top 5 like he's claiming to be, because he was only U.S. champ for a short time. And even then, I mean, I get it's part of his gimmick or whatever to use the brass knucks, but come on. Don't sit there and fucking act like you're the top dog, even if you were to learn a little more. And then you're not even a world champion. You came so close to beating Roman and then had the same outcome up until Cody beat him at WrestleMania. So it's kind of like what's the best word for it? It's kind of pointless, because I get, like Hedgehog was saying, Kevin Nash did overreact a little bit, but Logan Paul feeding into how Kevin Nash reacted was not really necessary, because at that point it's just a dick swinging competition. So I'm not really on Logan Paul's side, that's for sure. But Kevin Nash did kind of go a little over the top because he didn't know what one singular thing was. So I see both sides, but I just don't like Logan Paul as a whole, because, like I said, that dude floats his ego too fucking much. So
Yeah, I mean, I agree with mostly all three of y'all. I mean, listen, Logan Paul, I don't like in real life. I'll give him all the credit in the world. He's a hell of an athlete in the ring, even though I do think he's copied a lot of Hangman Page's moves. I don't want to hear them fans saying, oh, he did the moves before Hangman. Nah, Hangman did those moves way before he did. But he's a hell of a wrestler. And I mean, he's done this for a limited time and already a lot better than a lot of other wrestlers in the ring. But I also take into consideration he's not wrestling as often. He has more time to prepare for these matches, to train, to do all the other stuff. So Kevin Nash definitely overreacted. I mean, Kevin Nash has really been a guy who says a lot of controversial shit to get people to tune into his podcast. I mean, he was beefing with LA Knight for a while, basically saying like, "Oh, LA Knight's a rock ripoff and he's unoriginal and all that." So he's definitely a guy who loves to get people talking. So maybe that's what this is. Maybe he figures, you know what, Logan Paul's a big star. I'll talk about him, get people tuning into my podcast more. Not a bad move, but I mean, we don't know how Logan Paul is. Does he associate with people backstage? Is he like Brock, where he just shows up and kind of does his own thing, talks to a certain amount of people and splits? That could be a possibility. So all that you got to take into consideration. I'm not really too mad at Logan Paul, but I mean, you're saying you don't know who Kevin Nash is, but then a few months ago you were saying you watched wrestling growing up. I mean, Logan Paul's, I think, 27, so you were at least a kid when Kevin Nash was around. So, I mean, I don't get how you say that, but then you don't know who he is. It's just kind of like you remember what you said before. But I think both of them didn't really come out of this looking great. Logan Paul, I get he's a heel. Maybe he's staying in character a little bit saying this stuff. I mean, there are a lot of guys like MJF who keep kayfabe alive, so maybe that's what he's trying to do. But he is also an arrogant SOB, so I don't know. I mean, it's just a beef that's probably going to be just a 1 week talk, and then they're both going to carry on and do their thing. So we'll have to see. But final topic, and QJ was asking about this. What do I mean by this topic? And I'm not really talking about Cena's final opponent. I just mean one opponent you would like to see him face, just in general, whether it's him against Punk again, or him and Styles, or him and Kevin Owens, or him and Reigns, whoever you just want to see him face. Or maybe it's somebody who he's never faced, like a Braun Breaker or a Carmelo Hayes. So, QJ, since you're the biggest Cena fan here, I'll start with you. Is there one person that comes to mind that you would like to see Cena have a match against?
I'm thinking him and Drew McIntyre. Do want to see that. I feel that could be a good match. That's one that definitely comes to mind. It's like a sleeping one.
Yeah, they never really faced off since Drew's been on this level of a main eventer. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. Money, what about you? Is there anybody you'd like to see Cena face in this final round?
Because I'm kind of between him and Punk and him and The Rock, because while Cena and Rock need to have a tiebreaker match one more time, because they faced off twice at WrestleMania. Cena's won one, Rock won one, but then you got someone. I know I said Punk, but I was trying to think at the time. But Roman Reigns, he needs to finally beat Roman Reigns, especially with Roman Reigns is in his peak. So those are definitely a few opponents I want to see him face in his final wrestling run. So yeah, it's kind of a torn between those two.
Both great answers. Edjo, what about you? Is there anybody that comes to mind?
To be honest, I know it's been done a million times, but I would actually like to see a modernized version of Cena versus Orton, because the Cena versus Orton that happened now would be very different than how it was back then. I mean, like, they're very different now, and I feel like it'd be a lot of tributes to the old days, because how they were feuding a lot back then. So I would just be curious to see how that play out now here in 2024, soon to be 2025.
I wouldn't mind seeing all those opponents you guys listed. I think they'd all be great. So for me, I'll give one I haven't seen him face and one I have seen him face. I do want to see him against Braun Breaker, just because I think that'd be, not that Cena has to win, but I feel like that'd be a good boost for Braun Breaker beating somebody like him. And hopefully it's a better match than what Cena in theory was, because that match to me was a disappointment. And for people he's faced already, a lot of options there. I'd kind of like to see him and Seth Rollins. It's been a minute since they fought. I know they fought a lot a few years ago, but I actually would like to see him and Rollins one more time. I'm sure it might happen. They both have good chemistry in the ring. I know he broke Cena's nose and all that happened, unfortunately, but that was just a time where Rollins was just having bad luck hurting people, and with the Sting injury and the Finn injury and the Cena injury, it was just a weird time for Rollins. But I would like to see, Cena and Rollins. I think that'd be a fun match. But let me know in the comments who you guys want to see Cena face. There's really no right or wrong answers. I mean, there's a whole locker room. I keep seeing people saying in interviews that they want to face Cena. I've seen RVD. He said he'd like to come back. He was at SmackDown last night, so it's definitely a possibility. Randy Orton said he'd like to face him. CM Punk, Carmelo Hayes, Braun Breaker. So you got a whole line of opponents for arguably the greatest of all time. And I've said this before, I'd like to see him win one last world title. I just don't know who it's going to be against, because him beating Gunther to me wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. And I don't see him beating Cody, so I don't know how they would really do that, but we'll have to see. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We had a lot of good topics. Peace.